Welcome along to volume 32, and we're chatting today with a guy that's previously featured as a guest on Good Vibrations. We're talking Mr. Chris Spivey, a UK alternative researcher and blogger. He's got a very colourful, unique kind of writing style. Not for everyone perhaps, but it's definitely direct, straight talk, and he gets his message out there. And we're going to be chatting today all about institutionalised paedophilia and child abuse within the British establishment. Bit unsettling, not all that convenient, but nevertheless something that needs to be addressed by anyone into any kind of critical thought. How you doing, Chris?
I'm fine, Mark. Not too bad at all, mate. Not too bad at all.
Good to kick it to you again. We last spoke last summer in the wake of the Lee Rigby Woolwich situation, let's say, and we ran through many points about how you were convinced that this was a false flag hoax. So if people want to go back and check that out, it's still on the SoundCloud page. One of the early Good Vibrations volumes. A lot has happened since then, of course. I believe you've got another mammoth article to come shortly, focusing on the trial of the two Michaels, yeah?
It doesn't exclusively focus on the trial, Mark. It does revisit because there's been new evidence cropped up since, which I believe that no one else has found out apart from myself. But yeah, at the moment, I've put it on hold. Simply because the Daily Mail, every time I printed an article on Woolwich, the Daily Mail would bring out an article to refute it a couple of days later. So I'm not going to give anyone a chance to do that. Yeah, and I'm waiting for them to get sentenced. Now, they're meant to be sentenced this month, but we're on the 30th today, I believe, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know when they're going to get sentenced, but it was definitely meant to be this month, but they don't seem to be getting around to it too quickly, which I can't understand what the delay is really, if they've been both found guilty.
Learning the script, I suppose.
Exactly. But when it comes out, when I finally get to release it, it's going to blow the thing wide open. And anybody who has read the Drummer Man and the other articles that I've done on it, anyone who doesn't then believe that Woolwich was a false flag, he's never going to believe it, to be honest.
Well, there's no helping them.
There's no convincing some people, Mark, is there?
So it seems, yeah, so it seems, mate. So your blog site is going from strength to strength. You're getting many hundreds of thousands of hits a month now, I think. And it's become very much a full-time job for you, to the detriment of everything else.
It is, yes. I'm now doing this full time, so it just got far too much with trying to carry on with my tattoo business and this as well, because I'm bogged down with work now. I have three fellas who run the site for me, moderate the comments and run the forum and whatnot. But even then, I'm still working 16, 17 hours a day on here, and the information that's flying in there is unbelievable, Mark. But it's created a real backlog, So I'm now doing this full time for me things. But yeah, the website, we've just had to move that to Iceland. It was based in Russia, but it's continually under attack, and every time I raise my limit of gigabytes, the attack seems to increase with it, so I always sort of end up running out of my monthly allowance before the end of the month.
Do you think there's a few people out there that don't like what you say? Do you get that impression?
Most definitely, mate, most definitely. So anyway, I was advised to move the site to Iceland, which I've now done. So we've been offline for about 4 days.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because if you were some rambling, crazy tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy nut, then the establishment wouldn't really worry too much about what it is you're saying. If everything you were saying was complete bollocks that could be refuted at the drop of a hat, then why would there be so many attempts to sabotage your site? It does tend to be validation that you might be onto something, I feel.
I don't class myself as a conspiracy theorist anyway, Mark, as you know, because what I tend to do, I tend to take articles that are in the mainstream media and sort of plough through the old bollocks, which most of them are.
Yeah, the bollocks filtration unit.
Exactly. I'm not really what you call a conspiracy theorist. I don't, go into the lizard thing and whatnot. So I tend to deal with it here and now. But yeah, I mean, since I've been offline, I've seen all manner of things cropping up on other sites. Supposedly I've been taken off because I've been arrested, because of what I've said about the Holocaust and whatnot. I've been arrested by Jews, and the site's been taken down because of that, which is total tosh.
That's a good one. Not heard that.
As of today, I've never been arrested for anything that's been on the site, although I did receive that letter. I don't know if I mentioned it in the last podcast we did, but I received a letter from the Chief Inspector of Essex Police requesting a meeting, because I supposedly had illegal content on my site. Well, I didn't bother turning up. I didn't even get in touch with him, because as far as I'm concerned, if there's illegal content on the site, there's nothing to discuss, is there? I was sending some policemen round.
Do you think he was going to invite you to join the Freemasons?
I don't know what his plan was at all, Mark, to be honest. I say, but I've certainly never heard of anyone being invited to meet with the Chief Inspector to discuss illegal content.
Did he want to meet you in a forest clearing at 3 a.m?
I've got no idea where he wanted to meet me, mate, because I didn't even respond to it.
Oh, that's the best move, I think.
Well, that was July, if I remember rightly, and I've heard nothing since. So, apart from the attacks, obviously, on the site.
Indeed. And your domain name has changed from chrisspivey.co.uk to .org now as well, yeah?
But that came about because the move was essential. I say because the site was getting all kinds of jiggery pokery added to it, and somewhere along the line, my domain name .co.uk disappeared, along with my account with 123 Regs, who were hosting it, and we couldn't get it back, and we couldn't find out who had it. Someone paid it because it was due for renewal, only £6 or £7, whatever it is, the yearly fee, on the 31st of December. And someone paid that very kindly, but we couldn't find out who, and 123 Regs wasn't forthcoming with it.
I'm looking forward greatly then to your new Woolwich article going into all the information that you just mentioned, the trial and way beyond. And as you say, if that doesn't convince...
Right back, and I've got undeniable proof that I stumbled upon by accident, as it happens. I'm not going to say what it is yet, Mark, but anyone who still believes that the Woolwich was, as the government says, is in for a shock, because I've got proof that it wasn't. Undisputable proof, mate.
In the meantime, obviously this new Woolwich article is going to be of epic length, because a lot of your blogs turn out to be sort of size of half a book, because they have to be to get all the information in there. And another epic length article that I want to get into is one that you posted a while back, and it focused on the institutionalised paedophilia and child abuse within the establishment, and specifically within the entertainment industry, TV, film and music. And this whole subject area was obviously very much flavour of the month back when the Jimmy Savile scandal broke in October 2012. But as far as the general mainstream media reading public, people that just get their news from the BBC and the Daily Mail and the Sun and all of this, would perceive the trail to have gone a bit cold since then. You get the odd name like Rolf Harris and Ken Barlow and Dave Lee Travis being thrown to the dogs, and it creates the impression that Operation U-Tree is doing its thing, and that they're weeding out these odd bad apples here and there, and it's an attempt to pacify the public into believing that something is being done, and there's nothing more to see here. But it would appear to be the case that far from a few isolated incidents here and there, sexual deviancy and child molestation is more than just common within the entertainment world. It's woven into the very fabric of it when you start to really delve into it. And that's what that article brought to the fore, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I mean, I actually said to someone the other day, when we was talking about the BBC, I believe ITV is just as bad, just as much a paedophile's paradise as what the BBC is, mate, to be honest with you. And you've only got to look to things like Coronation Street and whatnot, and a huge disproportionate number of cast members who are caught up within sex scandals and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, Ken Barlow is just the tip of the iceberg, really. You've uncovered sexual abuse within the Coronation Street cast going back decades.
Well, yeah, I mean, when you look at Peter Adamson, who played Len Fairclough, he was up in court for fiddling with two little girls in a swimming pool, and he got off with it, and then later admitted that he did do it. Well, he's dead now anyway, but there's John Savidant, who played the butcher. What's his name?
Fred Elliott, wasn't it?
Fred Elliott, that's it. I say that's it. And he was sort of stabbed up, wasn't he, after picking up some young fella
in a gay bar, was it?
Something like that, and they went back and the young fella stabbed him, and he stabbed him quite badly. Of course, we've just had Michael Lavelle, our Kevin. He was cleared, but I mean, that's not the first time that he's been on these sort of charges. The first time there was insufficient evidence, which isn't the same as being not guilty. It's just means there's insufficient evidence to take to court with. And as we know, Ken Barlow's out there now. He's just been cleared on one of the charges, I've seen, which I haven't read the report yet. I say it could be with the move and whatnot, but it certainly sounds a bit dubious. I mean, they dropped the charge supposedly because the girl couldn't remember much about it, but that doesn't mean to say that it didn't happen, Mark, does it?
Yeah, exactly. And you go into EastEnders as well. There's a few sort of cases involving EastEnders cast members, including Joshua Pascoe, that played, the specky nerd Ben, being involved in a sexual assault as well, which is a bit of a surprise for people.
And that was a funny thing. I mean, because he was only 16 himself at the time, wasn't he? And the young fella he supposedly assaulted or sexually assaulted was only 14. And there was a big thing at the time in the newspapers, and obviously he couldn't be named. I'm not even sure if I'm meant to name him now, Mark, to be honest with you, but we have. So, and they had him going.
Well, allegedly, yeah, all allegedly.
All allegedly, yeah. And you never heard no more about it. It just sort of like went quiet, and so I revisited the case a little while ago, and it seems that he got a not guilty on it, but it wasn't widely reported in the press at all about that.
When you get all these household names that are kind of brought into the frame every now and again, as we said, although a lot of them fly under the radar, a lot of the ones you've identified in the article was not stuff that people will remember seeing in the mainstream press. But as I mentioned before, it does tend to be a way of suggesting to the general public that something is being done, and they're getting these individuals. But it would appear to be the case that all of this is keeping the spotlight away from some of the much bigger, much more important perpetrators. So how far up the establishment ladder does this institutionalised paedophilia and sexual deviancy go, according to your research?
It goes all the way, Mark, with it, right to the top. It stops at the living room in Buckingham Palace, mate. I have no doubts in my mind whatsoever that the royal family are all involved in paedophilia and whatnot. The evidence to suggest so is enormous, I mean, that started with Prince Philip, the Duck, who was brought up by his two uncles, Louis Mountbatten and George Mountbatten. George Mountbatten allegedly has the biggest ever collection of pornography, which is supposedly stored at the one of the big London museums. Can't remember which includes bestiality and things like that. And no doubt about it that Mountbatten was a paedophile anyway. And he had care of Prince Philip. from when he was a young lad, which led to that famous photo of 15-year-old Prince Philip in a funeral procession after his sister had been killed in a plane crash, with Lord Mountbatten behind him. And then, rather than knowing what the Mountbattens are like, the Queen and Prince Philip lent Prince Charles to him, who they called each other honorary grandson and honorary granddad. So what kind of people sort of like, after being abused by paedophiles, then give their young child to the paedophile to abuse, Then you have Prince Andrew, who was involved with what was his name? Geoffrey Gilchrist, I think it was. But he was a convicted paedophile, and Andrew's photographed there around his gaff with his arm around 15-year-old girls and whatnot, who testified against Epstein, Jeffrey Epstein. I don't know where Gilchrist came from. Who sort of testified against Epstein. And Epstein was using
Robert
Maxwell, that's it. His daughter is the PA to Epstein, and she knows all about the nonsense. Well, the Maxwells, as you know, is a very, very dodgy family, Jewish again, obviously. For anyone who don't remember, he supposedly killed himself, threw himself overboard of his yacht.
That's right.
But all the evidence points to him being helped.
Assisted off board.
Assisted, yeah. And, he was given a state funeral by Israel, which says about all you need to know.
Well, indeed, yeah.
Another fellow who's cropping up recently, I just got to mention, along with Simon Cowell. Simon Cowell, as you know, is mentioned in that article, Celebrity Paedophiles.
Lots to know about Simon Cowell.
There's a lot to know about Simon, an awful lot to know about Simon Cowell. Because the article is over a year old, and a lot has happened since. But Simon Cowell seems to be very involved with David Green, who owns Topshop and whatnot. And I see David Green's name popping up absolutely everywhere. And it's always linked to Simon Cowell. Well, as you know, Simon Cowell put up Jonathan King's bail money.
Yeah, why would he do that?
Why would he do that, indeed? Well, Simon Cowell's since disassociated himself with Jonathan King, trying to say that he didn't know what he was like. But I mean, the fellow was up on charges of buggery with young lads. So I can't see how he can say he doesn't know what he was like, because he put a bail money up for them charges,
Yeah.
And I say since then, Bill Maloney, when Max Clifford went to court on his charges, what happened to him? Well, all these court cases died down, Mark. Have you noticed? They do. Yeah. You hear no more.
Exactly.
Anyway, when Max Clifford went to court, Bill Maloney was waiting with his cameraman and that, and he very, very publicly was asking Max Clifford about sending people to Peter Stringfellows and Simon Cowell being a part of a paedophile ring with Jonathan King. So nothing came on, you could tell by Max Clifford's reaction that he wasn't enjoying it. Incidentally, that same video was used by all the mainstream media with Bill Maloney cut out. You could hardly hear him. You have to really listen, and you'd have to know what was going on, realise this. But
isn't it interesting with Jonathan King how the system seemed to have no problem with throwing him to the dogs, and he was all over the mainstream media, and he went to jail, and it was very public, and everyone knows about it. But then you hear about Jimmy Savile, who was into much, much more over a much longer period of time, and he was protected all through his life, and all this stuff only came out after his death, and it wasn't supposed to then. It's only because that filmmaker for ITV because the BBC wasn't going there. So he took the documentary to ITV, and it blew the lid off the whole Savile thing. And then everybody came to understand what Savile had been into, and obviously the alternative research community got all over it. Writers like yourself and many others exposed what Savile had been up to. But he was protected all through his life. And there's reason to believe that there may well be others who are being protected for as long as they're alive. And it's only after they croak it and leave this mortal coil that we're going to find out the true extent to which they were involved. There does seem to be this agreement in place with certain individuals that nothing will get out for as long as you're alive, it would seem.
Unless you upset them, of course. Just go back to something, I actually named Savile before he was dead as a paedophile.
Indeed,
And, you know, so I've got a lot of criticism for it, of the people. Likewise, Rolf Harris. Now, I'd heard about Rolf Harris a long, long time ago, before he was even arrested. And once I named him, even though he wasn't named in the mainstream media, I got floods of stories from Australia, as it happens, from people who used to work for ABC, Australia's ABC network, telling me tales about his wandering hands and whatnot. But yeah, Savile was without doubt protected, and it is impossible that the royal family didn't know.
Of course it is. Of course it is.
You know, because everyone is vetted, thoroughly vetted, before they're allowed any contact with the royal family, even friends and whatnot, you know, because obviously friends can turn out to be wrong uns, which suits the royal family to the ground, as far as I can see.
Isn't it interesting that so many people that have been knighted by the Queen over the years just happen to have turned out to have been vile paedophiles, and yet no one in the mainstream media ever thinks to ask the question as to how this can be, given that, as you say, these people are supposed to be vetted by MI5 and there's supposed to be all kinds of background checks done on them. And also it goes way beyond the realms of coincidence that so many of these sirs and lords turn out to be paedophiles. You know, if the mainstream media was doing its job properly and was full of proper journalists, the question would have been asked long ago, why does the Queen keep on knighting paedophiles? You know, I was hoping she would clarify this in her Christmas message and apologise to the British public for knighting paedophiles, but she didn't, sadly. No. So, you know, she never seems to want to go there. But really, the mainstream media should be asking these questions. The general public should be outraged that so many sirs and peers and lords and all of this are sexual deviants, and yet nobody ever seems to put the pieces together and say, well, hang on a minute, what is the Queen doing?
No, they don't. And I always say that getting knighted by the Queen is the kiss of death. They're all suspect if they've been knighted, which is maybe a little bit unfair to those who aren't, but it is the case, as you say, Mark. There is actually a page on Wikipedia of a list of names of people who've had their knighthoods and whatnot recalled, you know, because they've gone to court for whatever. And if you look at the huge amount of people who had their OBEs and whatnot rescinded because of being sexual deviants, it's disproportionate to everything else on the list. They're
taking the piss, to be honest. You know, they're taking the piss. Exactly. And people just accept it, and they're like, oh, well, you know, just one of those things.
I've got a story waiting to go on at the moment regarding the Roache care home abuse. And there was a couple arrested last year under Operation Plail. And I'm going to name them because she's just received an OBE in this month's New Year's Honours list, despite being arrested in August last year for abusing children. She was both foster parents, both long history of working with charities. Strangely enough, she worked for Southdown Homes in Brighton, and she retired, shall we say. She retired the month after being arrested. He's got a long association also with various charities working with disabled children and whatnot. And I say she just received the OBE in the honours list. So I'm set to name them as well. That only came in the other day, this information. But apparently the Daily Mail know about this, but they're waiting to see what they're charged with.
And the other thing is, how do you think it is that nobody from the BBC has been prosecuted or even questioned, as far as I'm aware, as to how Jimmy Savile got away with sexually abusing children on BBC premises, funded, lest we forget, by the general public by way of the TV licence for the best part of 50 years? In a country of awakened, aware people that pay attention to what's going on, this scandal would not have been allowed to be just brushed under the carpet the way it has, and many former directors of the BBC would have been hauled out of their comfortable retirement into the courts, and there would have been a mass public refusal to pay the licence fee. And I do feel that if this Savile scandal had happened in a number of other countries, some specific countries around the world, as opposed to the UK, just that would have happened. There would have been public outrage, a refusal to pay the licence fee, activism of all kinds. But in Britain, everyone just seems to have forgotten about it, and they just say, oh yeah, wasn't it terrible? And then they just get on with their lives and don't feel it has any bearing on the establishment and the country that they live in. It's so frustrating, isn't it?
I don't think, when you say, it's easy to say the word child abuse, and I don't think people fully understand the horrors that these children go through.
Exactly,
yeah. You know, I say child abuse. It's bandied about so much that it just it ceases to have any real impact, you know. But we're talking about organised paedophile rings who are, you know, torturing children. They're made to have sex with animals and whatnot. Cyril Smith, well, you know, he was just a big man of blubber, wasn't he? The little girl that he was raping was allowed to sit on top of him, because he was so big, which, you know, you think, is that a bonus or what? Well, could be killed, you know, stabbed and shot. People don't seem to grasp what these children are going through, which is disgusting in itself.
Yeah, they don't want to think about the graphic nature of what actually goes on, which is very unsettling, but it does give you a better understanding of what we're dealing with here.
It does, and as I say, many of them, many of the children are killed. They're ritually sacrificed by sects, as in SECT, sect, cults and whatnot. These rings involve very high powered people and politicians, and this is the glue that holds them together, Mark. This is why Savile was allowed to get away with what he did, because they're all involved in it.
They're all compromised very deeply.
Exactly. So you know, they can't blow the whistle. I mean, there's allegations or rumour that Jill Dando was about to blow the lid on it, and this is why she was shot. But whether that's true or not, I don't know. Can't see it myself, to be honest, and it's just a rumour. But there you go. But yeah, certainly, and they're all at it, and that's the glue that holds them together, and that includes the Prime Minister and the royal family, and there is not one decent person in the House of Commons or the House of Lords who is fit to rule over the nation. They're not even fit to walk the streets, Mark, you know, especially the likes of Peter Mandelson, who's just turned up on this list of satanic rituals and whatnot, which accuses him of murder, torture and murder. Well, as we know, Peter Mandelson is the front man for the NSPCC, as was Prince Andrew, as was Jimmy Savile, as was Margaret Thatcher, you know, and Mike Hancock who's been in the news recently. I've got some awful damning evidence on him. He is also involved with the NSPCC. I say he turns up on this list of Satan worshippers that's gone on my site just this morning. So there's not one decent person. And when going back to people rewarded by the Queen and whatnot, you can include Peter Mandelson in that lot.
They don't call him the Prince of Darkness for nothing.
No, exactly. And well, when Sherry Blair's calling him a monster, that he's a wrong one.
Pot kettle black at all?
Yeah, because she also defended paedophile. I've got some PDFs on her from years ago where she defended paedophiles, and she's not what she professes to be either, nor is her husband Tony Blair, as you know.
God, let's not get started on Blair. It's another podcast in itself.
No, well, the thing is, I mean, Mandelson was rewarded by the Queen and made a lord and whatnot, despite being drummed out of politics twice. What kind of country are we where we're rewarding criminals and perverts and allowing them to rule over us? And people's attitude is, yeah, but they're all like that. They're all bending, they're all like at it,
So kick them all out then. Let's start again.
Exactly. I can't understand it. Well, if they're all that doesn't excuse it. That just makes it even worse. And anybody who agrees to be governed by criminals and perverts really wants to take themselves in hand and have a proper word with themselves, mate.
Yeah, lest we forget, we're not answerable to the government. The government is supposed to be answerable to us, the people, and to represent our interests collectively. And quite clearly they're not doing that and haven't been for a long time, if ever. So if that's the case, we should reserve the right to remove them all and replace them with public trustees that are going to do work in the interest of the public, which is what they're supposed to be there for, what they're paid for.
Well, exactly. I mean, the whole system needs changing, Mark, doesn't it? Political parties need to be outlawed anyway, because there's too much scope for corruption there anyway. And a system of independent governance needs setting up throughout the country, because I say that there's far too much scope. They're all bought and paid for, and as long as this system is in place, it's never going to change. And you can't get anywhere in politics unless you are in the in the clique,
and corrupted and compromised.
And compromised. And I say that this is all boils down to this guest house where the security services were filming politicians and whatnot having sex with children in order to blackmail them. And you only have to look at the way that Cameron and Blair were both fast-tracked through politics. I mean, they didn't do their apprenticeship, so to speak, to get where they were, and it is because they are compromised.
Do you think that before they appoint many of these individuals to high positions of office, they're looking for people that have grubby little secrets and aspects of their personal lives that can be used to compromise and blackmail them, and that's why certain individuals are fast-tracked to the top? And do you think that kind of behaviour is actually encouraged once they get into office, because it's endemic within the whole system? It's almost like it's a pre-requirement to be part of the establishment. You have to have these grubby, sordid little secrets.
Indeed, Mark, without a doubt. This is drummed into them. You got to understand that they're not brought up like me and you and most normal people. Their whole existence is entirely different. I mean, they're traumatized from a very, very young age, from a baby to sort of scramble their minds and then reprogrammed. They're all psychopaths, and they're targeted now at university by the, shall we say, call it for want of a better word, by the elites.
Yeah, they all go to the same public schools
Same
and the
school
same universities.
where they're all buggered as young fellas when they first get there, and then progress on to doing the buggering of the younger children as they get older. You know, and this is why you find so many teachers and whatnot turn out to be paedophiles from these public schools, you know, and like all that cane malarkey and whatnots. And I say that, so they're targeted from a very young age and groomed, if you like, for these high-powered positions via the Bullingdon Boys Club and whatnot, which I did a big article on. And I say they don't think like us anyway, but they're all how can you say, they're not normal. And they're not capable of normal relationships, and you find that their wives are chosen for them. This is why so many politicians marry late in life, just before they get into office, i.e. Gordon Brown.
Yes.
Gordon Brown is a paedophile and homosexual, and his Mrs. Sarah, she is a lesbian. And they have this nice little relation because obviously the women who are chosen for them get this jet set lifestyle and whatnot, you know, and 9 times out of 10 they have no interest in men anyway, and they're allowed to do whatever they want as long as they're discreet, you know.
Yeah, marriages of convenience, just for so.
And the same was said about David Cameron. Certainly Samantha Cameron is not the mumsy nicey type that she would have you believe by any chalk. I mean, she was into cocaine and whatnot, and the illegal rave scene, and allegedly the Camerons. Well, Samantha Cameron is part of the Astor family, the satanic Astor family, who are well known for their Satanism and whatnot, which all came out during the Profumo scandal.
Indeed, yeah.
Well, the Lord Astor involved in that, where these orgies were taking place with Christine Keeler and Mandy Rice Davis, and that was all done on the Astor estate. Stephen Ward, who was supposedly running Christine Keeler, Mandy Rice Davis, and Ruth Ellis, as it happens. He lived on the Astor estate as well, and the Astors go back through history to the Chinese Opium Wars and slavery, the slave ships and that, and the Astors are involved in it all. Now, supposedly the Astors have compromising film of David Cameron taking part in paedophilia, and this is how they're controlled. I say Samantha Cameron is far from the mumsy type that she would have you believe, far from it. And once again, you got Woody Haig as well. He married Fionn. I'm surprised he even remembers Fionn's name, and they're never together because William Haig is a paedophile and a homosexual who supposedly dismissed Leon Britton, who's just been questioned by the British and Dutch authorities over paedophilia. And I actually got in touch with his son because I had it on good information that the son was running an investigation into Leon Britton in the late 80s, and they was ordered to drop it. And I actually contacted them about this, not expecting an answer. And the journalist involved to see what their reaction would be, and their reaction was to totally blank me after, saying they'd get back to me. They never did, and that was over the rape of a young boy who was found by the police wandering the streets half naked back in the 80s, and Leon Britton got a sack over this. Again, he didn't get married till he was 40, and until he started coming into prominence. I've got an old article which is an interview with him, which appears to be more like a damage limitation exercise than anything else, from 1989, which will be going on the site today. Just saying what a lovely family man and how much he loves his wife and whatnot, which is total bollocks. I say they just get married to give them an air of respectability. Yeah. They do the same in America. Obama, once again, homosexual, and just marriages of convenience. I say just to give them respectability, Mark. They're not capable of love. That's sort of taken out of them at a very, very young age, you know. And they're not capable of holding relationships together, you know, or even beginning a relationship, you know, because they don't have these kind of skills, these you know, the social skills required to form a relationship.
Well, if they can't relate to the general public, and they don't have the empathy and the compassion for regular people, and they don't understand what life is like for the average person that they're supposed to be representing, they can't ever do an appropriate, responsible job of making decisions that are going to assist those people and be of benefit to them, because they're completely detached from the regular way of life, as you say, because they've had a completely different kind of upbringing. So that makes the whole lot of them completely unfit for office.
And I say I can never understand the method in people's madness in you know, where Margaret Thatcher is being touted as the greatest prime minister, and they're talking about statues being erected to her. And the woman was a perverse paedophile who spent 11 Christmases with Jimmy Savile and McAlpine, Alistair McAlpine, who recently died. You watched the revelations about him.
Well, let's get on to McAlpine in a minute, certainly.
Yeah, you know, and they're totally detached from reality. They like you say, they have no empathy. They have no idea of what it's like to struggle, or to have to budget your money, you know, and if they have no empathy and they have no idea of what it's like for a normal person, then they can't possibly do what is needed to make things better for the poorer people in the country. And we see in this, I mean, what in Duncan Smith, a monumental failure. The man is a failure right across the board in everything he's done, from whether it be an author, to being the party leader, to his job at the moment, you know, which seems to be making the life of the disabled and the poor an absolute misery. He's even messed that up with the universal credits, you know, which is costing millions and millions of taxpayer pounds, and it's never going to work. So we got a monumental failure who lied when he took his oath as an MP, lied about his qualifications, and he's sort of, I say, making life totally miserable to such an extent that the disabled are committing suicide in their droves now, Mark. Say it's absolutely disgusting. And that man, I would cheerfully put a noose around his neck and pull a trapdoor, because he wants to say he's a disgusting, vile human being, mate. And he should never be anywhere allowed to go into the House of Commons for a start, you know. I say, because he's a failure at every single thing he's ever done in his life.
Well, the bunting and the streamers are at the ready.
Yeah, and yet people say, oh, well, yeah, you know, yeah, it's probably a bit corrupt, but like, that's all right, because all that, like, you know, and it's not all right, all mate. They
are all corrupt, and it's not acceptable. It's just not acceptable.
It's not, you do not get anywhere in politics if you aren't corrupt and you aren't a sexual deviant. You know, none of them can keep it in their trousers. You know, they have lovely wives, yet they're off out shagging anything that moves, be it woman, man, child. You know.
What do you make of? What do you make of a couple of characters from the House of Commons? Robin Cook, first of all, who had that quite convenient heart attack when he started exposing the lies to which Blair had taken the country to war, the weapons of mass destruction scenario, Dr. David Kelly and all that. And also George Galloway, who is a very outspoken politician who is often banging the drum about Zionism and how Zionists sort of control the whole establishment. But
Yeah.
I think quite interestingly with Galloway, if I'm not mistaken, he adheres to the official story of 9/11 and says that the official version is actually true. I just wonder what you make of those two individuals, because they're often cited as exceptions to the rule.
Well, Galloway, I actually did an article on, pointing out that he wasn't an exception to the rule at all. Like you say, he adheres to the official story, and anyone who adheres to the official story of 9/11 probably has their head up their ass.
Julian Assange also sticks to the official version of 9/11, so
exactly,
and
you have to wonder about these so-called whistleblowers. You know, what do they actually reveal? Nothing of substance. You know, oh, we're being listened to and we're being spied on. And well, good blimey!
I think we knew that, didn't we?
Exactly. You know, and nothing is ever revealed, and you can't help but think that all these whistleblowers are government operatives. You know, certainly I never report on them, Mark, because I don't believe what they say.
Yeah.
And that includes Edward Snowden as well. Yeah. But getting back to George Galloway, George Galloway is far from what he would have you believe. Now, I did get actually quite criticised for it because people, and I stick by what I say, I stick by everything I've said 100%, Mark. Galloway is just as bad as the rest of them, because you don't get anywhere in politics if you're not simple as that. And the whole fact that he backs the 9/11 story, it shows how corrupt he is. And the same, Robin Cook, well, like you say, he conveniently died of a heart attack, supposedly, or allegedly induced. And John Smith, the same.
Exactly. Yeah, I was going to ask about John Smith as well, because he paved the way for Blair to be brought in, didn't he?
Yeah, and there can be little doubt that he was murdered to specifically allow Blair to get in. And you need to look at what Blair did. Well, Blair is an out-and-out psychopath. Another one I would cheerfully hang.
Bunting's ready here for that one as well.
Just taking Blair, I mean, he's been found guilty of war crimes in Kuala Lumpur.
That's right, yeah.
Along with George W. Bush.
That's right.
And yeah, he's over here, you know, saying he wants to get back in politics and whatnot. Well, the bloke's a bleeding war criminal. And his property portfolio, well, people have no houses over. He's got houses here, left, right, and centre, and buying them for his kids and whatnot. Well, allegedly, he tried to rape his daughter. So I suppose buying a house is the least you can do. But
did you see the story about the guy that tried to make a citizen's arrest on Blair in a restaurant in London?
I did, yes, yeah.
And Blair waffled his way out of it.
There are international arrest warrants out for these people, but I can't see them being successful, Mark. You know, like I said, you didn't get anywhere with Blair. Similarly with the Queen, and people are pointing to the Queen. It now looks like she's going to give way to Charles Gordon. People are pointing to these arrest warrants, saying, "Oh, that's why she's, stepping down." And similarly with the Pope, that was supposedly why he stepped down. But I'm not having it, Mark. I don't believe it. Well, it's commendable that these arrest warrants are out and whatnot. I don't think anyone's going to have a chance of arresting the Queen, not until there's revolution in this country. And there will be. I mean, it's happening all over the world now. And sooner or later, the tipping point is going to come when it happens in this country. And I would prefer a non-violent revolution, which is possible in theory, but I'm afraid it's not going to happen, mate. And the only way that there's going to be change is through violent revolution, and it will come. It will come. I mean, we was chatting earlier about Mark Duggan and whatnot, and the gangs in London, and there's the article that I've done on them. There's a quite a graphic account of PC Blakelock's murder, how it came about and whatnot. and certainly the police want to be taking notice of what happened there and how they was outsmarted by the rioters and whatnot, because it is going to happen again in this country, and quite soon, the way things are going, because the likes of Dickhead Smith are pushing people to it. People with families are having no money to live on because they're being sanctioned because they haven't applied for their 10 jobs or whatever it is, when there aren't 10 jobs to apply for, and when they're hungry enough, and whatnot, then that's when the trouble starts. And when the trouble does start, well, they're trying to push it forward. At the moment, they can contain it, but if they leave it much, and they ain't going to be able to contain it, mate. It'll be violent revolution, and then the day of reckoning will come for them.
Well, I was going to ask you if you feel that there will come a time soon when the veil is going to be fully lifted from the whole rotten, corrupt nature of the whole establishment, and the game will be up. But from what you're saying, the sort of thing that is likely to trigger any kind of revolution and any kind of scenario where the public rises up and said, we've had enough, is not revelations about paedophilia in the establishment, in Parliament and in Buckingham Palace and all the rest of it, but just simply people having enough of the way of life that's being forced on them by the decisions that are being taken by the government. They've just had enough of being exploited.
Being exploited by criminals, Mark. Let's be straight about that. We're not, needlessly by criminals, because it really doesn't have to be this way, and as soon as people realise that, then and change will actually come about in this country. And I say, with the best will in the world, I would like it to be non-violent, but that just is not going to be the case. It isn't going to be, and it is going to turn very violent. And we're seeing this in all over the world now. Say the Ukraine and whatnot, Egypt before that, and the protests are all played down in the mainstream media. That are happening in places like Italy and Greece and whatnot. And I say it's going to happen in this country, and it's going to happen very soon. People are fed up, and people can see what are going, despite what the mainstream media would have you believe. People are rising up, because people are feeling the pinch. I can see it. I tend to go to, because it's only me and my daughter and my grandson, we tend to go to Tesco's on a nightly basis, to treat it like a corner shop, simply because it's convenient. And certainly I'm getting the same groceries as I was last year, but they're costing me a tenner more now, and but for absolutely no different to what I was getting this time last year. So,
and as you say, our so-called leaders don't live their lives in this way. They don't have to watch every tenner at Tesco, because they probably have their food delivered in hampers from Harrods.
So certainly they don't need to eat the shit that we have to eat, Mark.
Well, that's right, yeah.
That's for sure. But we subsidise them. You got people. There's I see in the Daily Mail today. There's a story about 3 people who've just been let off. They were being prosecuted for going through the bins in Iceland. Iceland, the food company, not Iceland, the place there. And there's more people using food banks than ever before.
And these supermarkets are putting blue dye on the food to make it not fit for consumption, because they actually don't want people eating food which they are going to throw out. How sick is that?
It's totally sick. And I say it. And on top of that, Mark, we're subsidising these millionaires to eat the finest food and drink the finest wine, while people are going hungry and can't afford to feed their families. And I just think, why are we accepting this? Why are we putting up with this? These people are criminals. They're sexual deviants. They have no place in this world, let alone in Parliament, and they have to go. And the tipping point is coming. It will be very violent when it comes, mate.
Do you feel that if this was, or if these events had happened in certain other countries, then people would have risen up before now. Do you think the tipping point amongst British people, because we tend to be quite passive and, it's all about being polite and mustn't grumble and just accepting your lot, do you feel that the tipping point would have been much earlier in certain other parts of the world?
No, that's hard to say. For a start, I don't live in other parts of the world, so I can only speak from experience in this country. But so I mean, if you take Greece, where people are actually giving their children over to orphanages now because they can't afford to feed them, and there's mass riot in the street which isn't reported on. Certainly there it had to come to worse than it is here before that happened. I don't know about the Ukraine, how bad it is over there, but they've had a result anyway, haven't they? But so I can't really answer that one, Mark. All I can speak for is this country, and America certainly seems to be very much the same as what we are over here. Certainly they're accepting all this piss taking, and it is a piss take. And I say it's got to stop, and it doesn't have to be this way. It really, really doesn't, because without going off on a different tangent there, there's so many things that can be done to make it so it doesn't have to be this way. No one has to go hungry in this country. No one has to go without, adequate food and shelter. So why are the people accepting this when it doesn't have to be that way?
And this ties into a news story which came out this week. MPs suggesting that Buckingham Palace should be opened to the public more often when the Queen's not in residence, to raise funds to help the upkeep of the palace, when the royal family, according to many reports in the alternative arena, are worth not millions, not billions, but trillions, sitting on all that wealth, when there's people going hungry, people starving, people dying of malnutrition and cold and all the rest of it. And we're now being told that the public has to subsidise Buckingham Palace when all that wealth is just sitting there doing nothing. That to me is just completely obscene.
It's just old fanny, isn't it? Designed to whip up support for the royal family. If you notice, George Osborne has come out in criticism of these MPs who suggested this subsidy of the palaces. We already subsidise the palaces anyway. Why should we do it again? And like you say, quite rightly say, the Queen is worth trillions of pounds, much of it made through depleted uranium. Now, I put a story on the site the other day about an American a woman who'd been in the army over in Iraq and whatnot, and she is suffering from the effects of depleted uranium, and wanted people to donate for a treatment, which, when you think about it, the government should pay for that anyway. But why aren't these people who are joining on, why aren't they made aware of the dangers they face through depleted uranium? And far from feel sorry for them, I feel it serves them right for not educating themselves in the first place. The people I feel sorry for are the people in Iraq and Afghanistan and whatnot who are having horribly deformed babies because of this depleted uranium, which the Queen and many government members have huge investments in them, and which generates millions of pounds for them. And it's absolutely disgusting, mate.
Just before we start to wrap up then, Chris, there's just one subject that I wanted to go back to that we touched on earlier, which was the recent death of Lord McAlpine. People will recall that he was all over the news a few months ago when this story broke about BBC Newsnight, this guy Steve Mesham, that claims he was abused as a child by Lord McAlpine in this children's home, except he didn't actually name him. He was anonymous on the programme. Then there was a whole load of speculation among the public as to who this figure might be that he was referring to, and speculation led to Lord McAlpine's name being put out there, and people were tweeting about it. And then there was this indignation from McAlpine himself via his lawyer. What was the guy's name? Reid?
Yeah.
Andrew Reid. Yeah.
Still waiting for the letter, Mr. Reid.
Yeah. And then you had situations like Alan Davis tweeted something about McAlpine being involved. And of course, Sally Bercow, the wife of the Speaker of the House of Commons, was publicly sort of chastised and shamed for it and made to pay a fine. And the BBC and the ITV were made to cough up when none of them had actually directly accused him of being involved. So this was all very public, and it was all very much in your face. And I was on your blog site the other day, and I went back and saw the story about the death of Lord McAlpine. And it's the first I'd heard of it. I didn't hear anything in the mainstream. His death seems to have been very kind of under the radar and very discreet. It doesn't appear to have been reported on in a major way. And it all seems to be kind of hushed up and brushed under the carpet. And that struck me as a bit strange, to be honest.
Like you say, it is very strange. Now, you take the BBC and ITV. This goes back to what I was saying earlier on, Mark, about they're both as bad as each other, because neither of them named McAlpine. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
They all have high-powered lawyers and whatnot. Yet they rolled over and paid these fines without so much as a whimper, you know. And Sally Bercow, I said all along that she was involved. Her husband, the horrible little twat, John Bercow, is friends with McAlpine, known each other a long, long time, and it was just a proper act of parliament, if you like, because it was just an act, nothing more. It was a show trial to put people off naming suspected paedophiles on the internet, you know. A lot of people took his name down. A lot of people shit themselves. McAlpine set up a page where people could voluntarily pay a fine for naming.
That was.
But people did it, Mark. This is how stupid people are.
As you say, everyone was shitting themselves. They were like, "Oh my God, I might get sued for this," when they hadn't actually made any direct accusation. They were just retweeting things other people had said.
Exactly. And I did make direct accusations, and I did not take them down. I'm still waiting for my letter, Mr. Reed, which has never come. Well, the twat is dead, and good riddance to bad rubbish, because he was a paedophile, the whole family of paedophiles. And one of his favourite tricks was putting children, little boys, into coffins and then throwing dirt on top of the coffin, so the child inside in the dark, cramped space, thought they was being buried alive. And McAlpine said, you know, once you do this, the child will do whatever you want him to do, for fear of being put back in that coffin. And that is the kind of man he is, and that is the kind of people we have in government at the moment. We're not talking about how they were in the old day. We're talking about this is how they are. They're sick and they're twisted, and they need to a man and woman hanging, mate. As simple as that. No, you know, they should be allowed to mix with decent people.
All right, Chris. Well, we'll leave it there for today. Fascinating stuff. Thanks for taking the time out. Really appreciate your insights into all of that. Do you want to just recap once again on where people can catch your blog and read more about your work?
Yeah, I say at the moment we're on www.chrisspivey.org, but it is going to return to www.chrisspivey.co.uk. But whichever one you type into your bar, your search bar, will take you there anyway, because they're both going to be rerouted, the .co.uk from Russia and the .org to the .uk. So whichever of them two that you want to type into, you'll get me anyway.
You're doing a few public talks as well, yeah?
I'm due to go down to Brighton in March or April. And I've had a request from Bristol. I'm a bit wary about requests from Bristol, because Bristol is a big satanic place. It's certainly, I mean, if you look at events like, you know, prominent scientists and whatnot find themselves out of windows, all happens in Bristol. Justin Donna, which we still haven't had the inquest to that. She was from Bristol, and you would be surprised when you're actually looking for it, the number of events that happen in Bristol. So I'm a bit dubious about going to Bristol anyway, mate, because I might not come back.
They've got a great big statue that they put up in Bristol city centre when they refurbished it a few years ago, and it looks a bit like a DNA helix spiral, and it looks a bit like a sort of human spine representing Kundalini energy and all of that. And you see these structures everywhere now, city centres all around the world. They all look the same. They all resemble that DNA helix kind of spiral. So there's definitely some symbolism going on there. And it seems to be like the calling card of the establishment to say, we've got this city on lockdown.
I think they've got every city on lockdown, Mark, haven't they? You know, we live in a police state now, whether you like to admit it or not. I mean, there was checkpoints out in London, again, just last week. You know, what is that all about? But yeah, certainly, symbolism and statues and whatnot. And if you look at the, Americans, you know, the American bank, has disturbing, statues and movals on the wall, as does, Cleveland Airport. Which is supposedly a very satanic place.
Oh, Denver, isn't it? Denver.
Sorry, yeah. You know, depicting what is going to happen, and what's in store for us. You know, the slavery that is to come. And if you can't see that we're heading that way now, then really you need to stop watching TV and start paying attention, because this is coming, and it's coming very quick. It's very quick, and I say it's just which is going to happen first? Are people going to riot first, or are they just going to let these slave measures come into practice? You know, so it's up to the people. It's up to the people. Their own future is in their own hands.
Yeah.
I say, like you said earlier, the government work for us, not the other way around. You know, that they are our betters and they are our rulers, and they're not. We are their rulers. They can only do what we let them.
Your choice, folks. It's all your choice. All right, Chris, thanks again. We'll leave it there, mate, and
Thank you.
We'll catch you again.